Welcome back to Switch to Linux, here on another Distro Wars, where we like to pin a couple distributions that are similar to each other next to each other. This video here is actually a commonly requested one, and so I wanted to go ahead and do that. Especially, hey, we've been on an Endeavor kick. think I've done Endeavor as part of Distro Wars for a couple weeks in running now, so this will probably be the last one we do for a little bit. I love Endeavor so far; it's becoming one of my favorite Arch installers. But people are saying, hey, have a look at RebornOS as well. So RebornOS is a fork of Antergos before Antergos died out. And then when Antergos died, most of the team got together to build EndeavourOS. So there is this connection. Not only are they Arch installers, but they have the same root being Antergos. And so I want to go ahead and have a quick look at them. So RebornOS, the thing about RebornOS is you have a lot of features on a very simple GUI installer, and that is awesome. I did run into a problem, though, is that I cannot get it to create the user account folders. And that means that the user that I install on startup does not actually allow me to log in. So I have to log in as root, delete that user, create a new user, and that actually solves the problem. So that is a downside on Reborn. I don't know if it's just something in the current new release or if this is a long-term issue. I only had about a half hour to research it. I did not find anything on that issue, but fortunately somebody here in the pre-stream show was able to point that out as a possible solution, and that fixed, so thank you to you, Aram. Or is it RM? Anyway. So onto RebornOS, you can go ahead and download it. There's a single downloader, and the single downloader allows you to do a whole lot of different installation options and making it one of the best GUI installers that I've seen. We do have POMOC set up and configured out of the box. So this is something that my favorite, the one I'm using is Arch Labs does not have this, although I have this running on Arch Labs. I installed it. I have a separate video on that. And also, EndeavourOS does not have a good GUI package manager either. So those are some of the options for it. They do have some wikis and things, although I've found that there's not as much information in there as there would be finding help on the regular Arch forums and things like that. If you want to go ahead and download it, you can just hit your download button. I don't know why download's not in the menu, unless I just missed it up there. But you can go ahead and download it, and you can grab it from a variety of different servers, locations. You can grab just the ISOs, the torrents. We have our signature files there and things like that. So you do have a variety of options over there. EndeavourOS, this is about a year old now. This has become one of my favorite ones. When you download this guy, if you install it using what's called the offline, it's going to install the XFCE build. If you build it with the online, then you have an installer that allows you to choose your desktop environment and a few other configuration settings as well. I found that EndeavourOS does give us a better upfront, easy-to-use system, and you can actually log into it with the user account you created. That seems to be a problem that I'm having on Reborn, but we'll go ahead and walk through the fix for that issue. So with that, let's go ahead and get booted into these guys. So we're going to go ahead and start with RebornOS, and we'll go ahead and boot into that. All right, so here we are on the loading screen. Now, I actually installed this. So I did install this a couple times to see if I could get the sessions to work right. First, I tried installing Cinnamon, and I was not able to get logged in unless I dropped down here, went down to Other, and went into Root. And then I went ahead and installed Cinnamon on this as well. The XFCE build, it's pretty ugly. It's pretty ugly, I gotta say. But let's go ahead and log into Cinnamon. And I didn't actually change any settings inside of here, but it does look as though it's using many of the theming elements, not all, but many of the theming elements from Mint out of the box. So you can, oh, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not because I actually, I did, the first time I installed it with Cinnamon, it gave me better theming. This time it's just kind of raw Cinnamon out of the box. So just because I installed XFCE and then went from there. We do have a GNOME Software Center set up, but last time I checked, it does not actually have all of the repositories. It has FlatHub and some Linux vendor stuff. You need to install your package kit to get that all working. I'm actually going to be doing a full tutorial video on that. just to walk through all the steps in that. So out of the box, though, you do have a very nice installer system that allows you to take all of your settings. You land on a platform. We have Flatpak installers, really nothing else out of the ordinary. It's just a pretty much complete system. Now, of course, with RebornOS, you actually have more options on install, so you can land on a system that's more exactly what you want. So here's actually some of the setups. We do actually have some really nice settings here. There we are. Let's do that, and let's do, I want to do that one there. There we go. This is actually how I have my other one set up. So this is really nice theming over here. So you do have good theming out of the box. You just had to enable all that. So let's go ahead, though. This is kind of what it's going to look like. Oh, let's go walk through real quick how you can fix that not logging in issue. Now, I did it because I like doing things in the GUI if I can. So since I already had a functioning desktop, just come over here to users and groups. And hopefully I gave myself this. Yes, I did. So all I need to do is it created for us a user, but what it did is it never created the user folders and the user directories. So the easiest fix for that, I just went in and deleted the old user account and added a new administrator. That actually solved my problem. So with that being said, that's how you did it. But we want to go through and have a look at what the installer looks like, because I think the installers are the things that really set these two apart. So let's go ahead and drop in our Reborn, and let's go ahead and reboot. Now, we do have the options once this guy boots up. You have the option to boot the live key. I believe this boot RebornOS after install is probably booting off of whatever's on the hard drive. You do have an NVIDIA boot option, so if you are running NVIDIA, you probably want to try that as well. But let's go ahead and walk through this setting here. This is going to get us onto the desktop, and we will have a nicely themed, I think it's a nicely themed GNOME is actually what we land on. And then we have the installer option it's giving us, which is actually very nice. So we'll come back on when we are on the installer. All right, so here is when you first boot in, we have the try it option to play with the live key, or you have the install it option. So the installer, we do have to use the arrows up here. This is what the Cinchi installer, I believe. Is that how you pronounce it? My apologies if I didn't pronounce that right. It's going to do a system check, make sure everything is good, and then we will have a variety of options. It does not land us directly on United States out of the box, so you can go ahead and select that from the list. It also does not detect where we are, so hey, no creepy operating system figuring out where we are from our IP address. That's a bonus. Here's the keyboard layout. It does actually select our US English. And now here we have Base, Budgie, Cinnamon, Deepin, GNOME. So you have a variety of different desktops available to us as well. So you can install whichever one you would prefer. Once you have your desktop figured out, you can add accessibility packages. You can add packages for system administration. So you can hover over this box. You can see this is BleachBit, Stacer, TimeShift, RebornOS Recovery. So let's see, RebornOS Recovery, a preventative solution for sudden losses of data. There you go. So we also have Arch User Repository support. We have Bluetooth support. Chromium web browser. You can turn that on or off. Hey, that's something Linux Mint needs, right? Here's photo editing, video editing. We have Dropbox, Firefox Developer. Firefox web browser is default turned on. We have FreeOffice, Google Chrome. We have hardware analysis, kernel LTS versions, what's installed. We have LibreOffice Opera, popular games, power saving, probably, is it TLP? TLP and Thermald, okay. We have printing support is installed out of the box. You see a variety of things. So there's Wine, probably just Wine or Wine and Proton. Let's see. Play on Linux and Lutris. Okay, in addition, this comes with Play on Linux and Lutris both installed. So you have Wine, Play on Linux, and Lutris installed. Spotify, Steam, Vivaldi, VLC, and WPS. So you can make any of your settings there. You have a disclaimer about your Arch user repository. Select your caching partition. And then from there, it's since you do the mirrors. And then from here, we're not going to go ahead and run through this because we already have this installed. But from this point out, it's just where do you want to install it and add your user account. Now, this is the point where, again, the user account does not seem to work on this download. I just downloaded it today, so I don't know if this is a bug in this current system or whatever else the case would happen to be, but my user accounts will not allow me to log in. So again, fixing that. You could do the user add in the terminal as well. I did the GUI because I'm that way, but you can do that. Let's see actually if we have Pamuk installed here. So we do have Pamuk installed on this. I did not show this when we were logged in. I just wanted to show you guys that if you go, can we authenticate into there? Yes, we can. So you do have the option to enable Flatpak support. It is disabled by default. You do have the ability to enable Arch User Repository. It is actually enabled by default. This one, it's not disabled. This is disabled on the live key, but it is enabled on the install, provided you selected to install it. We don't have the snap package built in that Manjaro has. But there is RebornOS. Overall, it's going to land you a very nice, very simple and easy to build out version of Arch. The downside is I've found that it does not create the user account. So we're going to go ahead and jump on in and we'll have a look at EndeavourOS next. We'll go ahead and look at the installer on that one first. All right, so here we're going to be looking at EndeavourOS. So we can boot the Endeavour. We can boot Endeavour with NVIDIA non-free. We can boot the existing operating system. And so we're going to go ahead and boot into the live key so you guys can see what the installer options are. So again, this one's going to have the online and the offline installer. If you're doing the offline, it's just a mirror of what we have on the USB live key, which is going to be a very nicely themed XFCE, but that's what you're going to get. And then if you do the online install where it goes online and grabs extra information, then you can actually look at different desktop environments and other setup options. So we're going to go ahead and show you what that's going to look like. And I have separate videos of this, so I'll go a little bit quicker through all of these just for the purpose of example here. So here when we get booted in here, we have the start the installer. It's going to ask us the offline. It's going to get us this XFCE desktop, which actually is very nice. The online method allows you to choose your desktop with vanilla theming, and an internet connection is required. So we'll go ahead and jump online there. We'll hit the online installer. This is using Calamaris instead of the Cinchi installer. And so here, American English. It detects our location. Thank you, Creepy Software. We have our keyboard layout. We're going to erase the disk. And then I don't think I have to erase the disk to show you the whole step. So we can do with Hibernate or without Hibernate. Now here you can install the base. You can choose your desktop environment. So we have XFCE, Mate, KDE, GNOME, Cinnamon, Budgie, Deepin, i3, LXQT. You also have the option for printing support, accessibility tools, and NVIDIA drivers. Over here is your users, and then at this point in time, go into the summary and push the install, and it's actually going to make changes, which we don't want to do that, but you can kind of see that you do have options. You do have a little bit more options on Reborn as far as what individual pieces of software that you actually have to install. But I guess you can come down into here and see if there's anything in here you want to take off or add on. It just kind of depends. I think most of this you probably won't want to change. That's all pretty much your core stuff that you need. So I'd probably keep all those the same. But then here's accessibility tools. So if we want to do like Cinnamon Desktop, for example, is what I'm using. We have Cinnamon, Blueberry, translations, all the various things. But we actually otherwise get a fairly minimal base. So we're going to go ahead and we'll go ahead and exit the installer, and I'm going to reboot the system into our existing operating system. All right, so over here, we now have our login screen. Now, this is the computer build I've been experimenting with, putting different desktop environments on. We'll go back into the Cinnamon, same when we ended the last one on. I did not have any issues with Endeavour creating the user accounts. And once we go ahead and get logged in, we will then have a nice system here, and it'll fix the wallpaper as soon as it's done booting up. And here we are. We land on the welcome screen. I'm going to go ahead and hit the don't show me anymore, and then if we want to turn that back on, we can later. So we have overall out of the box a very similar experience. The theming on this one The theming on this actually was much nicer than it was by default on RebornOS. Although when I installed Cinnamon first on RebornOS, I did actually have a little bit better theming. It actually was themed very much like Linux Mint was out of the box. But this one here, again, we just had the ability to go in, select the same options. I'm just doing an arc darker, and I chose though a blue icon theme instead of the the red one that I had on the other one. As far as the software, this one does not really give us the options for installers, but if we examine that welcome screen in more detail, the one I closed at front, there is the ability to add LibreOffice, Chromium. The kernel manager is a tool to manage Linux kernels. Although I didn't point it out in the RebornOS, the kernel manager is infinitely better. This one allows you to choose your kernels between your Zen kernels, your LTS, your current kernels. In RebornOS, the kernel manager actually allows you to go through and install different versions. If this kernel manager allows you to do that, I have not actually found that options. And I don't think I've installed that on this particular build. We do have the ability, though, to do personal commands, basically adds an extra tab in the welcome screen. Now, if we want to install extra software, we do actually have a packages utility, although I found it is not particularly good. In fact, it's, dare I say it, it's pretty much useless. So out of the box, we can search for applications. It's going to be able to work if you know what you're looking for. But as far as searching and browsing for something, we don't have something quite as nice as Pomok on this system to actually install things. As far as adding anything else, you can do things like a GNOME Software Center. I did actually install the GNOME Software Center on this. And then I did actually have to configure it to get the packages. But if you do want to have a nice searchable GUI system, you can do that. It's not all that difficult. I'm going to have a tutorial about how to do that exactly at a later time. But out of the box, though, they both are a decent experience. I think that comparing the two of them together, I think that RebornOS gives us a lot more options out of the box. You're going to have a much more customizable system, and it's actually a little bit easier to install stuff out of the box on RebornOS. The biggest hangup I have right now, and it might just be a little bug in the system, it might be something on VirtualBox, but for whatever reason, when it installs, it does not install the user correctly, and so the user that you installed cannot log in. You can fix that by logging in as root with your root password that you set for your user account, log in as root, delete that old user, add a new one, and that will fix the problem. That might be something that's just a bug in the system. It might be something they just didn't even know was there. I don't know exactly what the case is. It's an easy fix. EndeavourOS does not have that option, but it does make installing the individual vanilla desktop environments a little bit not quite as easy, but a little bit more straightforward. But after the fact, to install them later, you have the packages tool, which leads you to a false sense of security. I think that whole packages tool that EndeavourOS has should be thrashed and rebuild it. Thrash it, delete it, put Pomok in instead, because Pomok actually works. It works well with Arch. It works well with other systems, and it actually gives you something that is a lot easier to use out of the box. That being said, you can still manage them both. I'm still torn between the two. I'm not going to necessarily recommend which one of these is better because Reborn has that one issue. EndeavourOS doesn't have quite as many customization options, which means that you'll get a system that's either going to be exactly what you need or what an Arch user might consider pure bloat, versus RebornOS, you can choose which bloat you install by default. So those are kind of the thoughts that I have on it. They're both excellent. If you need Arch and you don't want to walk through the time of walking through the whole Arch setup process, then I would definitely recommend one of these two, or Arch Labs or Arco Linux, to get a Arch system up and running on your system very quickly. So this idea that you need to know all of the command line tools to run Arch is quickly fading away, and distributions like these are some of the ones that are actually helping with that. So kudos to both projects. They're both worth taking a look at, and hopefully this will help you. So thanks for coming along, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux. Thank you for watching this video from Switched to Linux. This channel would not be possible without the backing of the program supporters scrolling on the screen now. You can be a supporter at Patreon at patreon.com/TOMM or at thinklifemedia.com. I also want to thank the open source community who creates such excellent software that makes producing this show possible. Please remember to support your software communities. Thank you, and I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.